What we'll see today is that they don't go back far enough. They go to Leviticus. We're going to Genesis. Do the dietary laws from Sinai represent the unchanging, eternal will of God for all people? Has God ever said anything different about food laws than he said to Moses in Leviticus 11? Yes, he has. This video will throw some cold water on the idea that all of the dietary laws given to Israel through Moses have universal application for all time. Those who promote Torah observance often argue for this position by means of another argument, that God's laws never change, and they often say we should go back to the beginning of the book to interpret the end. What we'll see today is that they don't go back far enough. They go to Leviticus. We're going to Genesis. The first dietary law given is found in Genesis chapter 1. Genesis 1:29 and 30. Then God said, Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the surface of all the earth, and every tree which has fruit yielding seed, it shall be food for you. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the sky, and to everything that moves on the earth, which has life, I have given every green plant for food. And it was so. Every fruit and every green plant was given to be food for man and for the animals. At this time, everything was good, and according to the text, God did not change this until after the flood. Though the fall occurred, and it is implied God killed animals to provide skins for clothing, nothing appears to have changed regarding the situation here. After the flood, however, God says this to Noah. Genesis 9:2-4. The fear of you and the terror of you will be on every beast of the earth and on every bird of the sky, with everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they are given. Every moving thing that is alive shall be food for you. I give all to you as I gave the green plant. Only you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. God gives every moving thing, every animal, saying it shall be food for man, and this is done just as he gave the green plant. The only prohibition given regarding food is to not eat flesh with the blood in it. I pause to address here two objections that are offered as a rebuttal to this. The Torah movement person, seeing the clear difference here between what is said to Noah and what is later commanded through Moses regarding eating only clean animals, wants to find a way to make that difference go away. One thing they could do, but never actually do, is to simply acknowledge that some of God's commands are only intended for a certain time, or for a certain person or group, but then still argue that the law of Moses applies to all people on other grounds. But in all my conversations with them, I've never heard anyone go that route. The first objection is to point out that Noah did have a concept of clean and unclean animals, since God commanded him to bring 7, not just 2, of every clean animal aboard the ark. Genesis 7:2-3. However, these clean animals are never spoken of as food for Noah and his family. Instead, other food is brought aboard for all the people and animals. Genesis 6:21. The reason for extra clean animals becomes clear after the flood, since some of them are offered before the Lord on an altar as sacrifices. Genesis 8:20 and 21. So this objection fails because it does not establish any dietary laws, only that clean animals are fit for sacrifice. Since we do find commands regarding food within this same narrative, it cannot be assumed that other unspoken dietary commands are implied regarding clean animals. The second objection, sometimes made, is that the Hebrew word for creeping thing or moving thing, found in Genesis 9:3, remez, is only about wild, clean animals, like deer. Space does not permit a full refutation of this argument, but thankfully I've done that. In a previous video in The Cross and the Torah, I went through all of the various terms for animals found in Genesis up to this point, to show that they are often interchangeable and also used to refer to all animals. I'll also point out a few very important things here. First, never is remez used in Genesis to designate clean animals, as opposed to not clean. This means that the one making this argument is engaged in wishful thinking. hoping that this Hebrew word can be pressed into service to save his theology, but with no text to back it up. Secondly, the text itself does contain a limiting command when it comes to eating animals, but it isn't which animals, it's the prohibition against blood. So once again, we have an example in the narrative of the kind of thing the Torah observer would want, but it is about the wrong thing. This passage talks about dietary laws, but not in the context of talking about clean animals. And the passage does limit what can be eaten, but not which animals. That's 0 for 2. Now, all of this discussion comes from the desire among many Torah observers to stretch Leviticus backwards into Genesis. But that isn't the only issue. Remember that Genesis 1 presented food law first. Before the fall, God gave plants to eat. Then he changed the command to allow animals. And this change isn't just apparent to us based on what God says concerning food. It is also noted as a change by the text itself. I give all to you as I gave the green plant. Genesis 9:3. So God himself makes note of the fact that what he's doing now is analogous to what he did before. Just as God determined food before the fall, he is now determining food after the flood. And God determined different things at different times, as he is free as king of the world to do. Really, the Torah observers' defenses against the plain meaning of this text fall apart because of that little thing called context. They feel they cannot allow it to mean any animal is not a sin to eat, and so they come up with whatever they can to distract from the context. Verse 3 does not sit by itself. Verse 3 explains what is meant by verse 2. Notice that verse 2 speaks of all the animals having fear of man, and all are given to man. There's no escaping that every animal is meant by every beast of the earth and on every bird of the sky and everything that creeps on the ground and all the fish of the sea. This is a very clear way of talking about all of the animals. It uses the exact same categories, save the fish for obvious reasons, as when God spoke of the animals that would be brought on the ark, Genesis 6:20. And then, of course, you have verse 3 itself, which explains itself in light of the plants in Genesis 1. And God says, I give all to you. Since the Hebrew for things that move can have a range of meanings, we allow the context to determine the meaning. We don't do it based on a preferred meaning. It is undeniable that based on the language before and after the statement that every moving thing shall be food, all animals are given as food to man after the flood. This is what listening to the scriptures in context sounds like. So how does this affect us today? To answer the question of whether Christians can eat any animal as Noah was told, check out this video.